Hey everybody, Taraku here, and today I want to do a High Elves Rares guide. So this video is going to be primarily tailored towards new players who are pulling these rares specifically, whether it's through the campaign or through mystery shards or even ancient shards, and you're wondering, is this rare worth using? Is this rare worth taking to 60, or should I just not worry about them, put them in the vault, do save for a fusion? So in this overview, which is going to be a quick overview of each champion, it's not going to be an in-depth guide on any of the champions. If you do want to see an in-depth guide on any of the champions, let me know in the comment section below. The purpose of this guide is just to let you know whether or not I believe these specific rares are worth keeping, worth taking to 60, or how far they're actually going to take you within the game. Okay, so jumping into the High Elves, we're going to check out the rares. We're going to start off, how we're going to do this guide is I'm going to start off with going over each of the support champions. So we got support, and then we'll go attack, and then we'll look at the last defense character. We're going to compare supports to supports, attacks to attacks, and then obviously not compare the defense to anybody because there's only one defense character in the High Elves. But our first support is Apothecary, and he's probably one of the most popular and most talked about supports for High Elves by far. Let's look at his abilities real quick. Attacks 3 times at random, basic. Heals a target ally by 35% HP. This attack can be critical, which is amazing. Places a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. Fills a turn meter of all allies by 15%. And his aura increases ally defense in dungeons by 21%. In my opinion, Apothecary can 100% and should 100% be taken to level 60. In 6-star, you're going to use him through all of the game content. He's great in arenas, clan boss, dungeons. So while he's not excellent at the campaign, he is amazing at everything else. Definitely a great clan boss player to boost your speed for your team. His heals are awesome, especially if you get his crit rate up. And this allows him, this A1 allows him to be very viable in things like the Fire Knight. That's Apothecary. 100% if you pull him, gear him up, level him up, he's definitely worth keeping. Now, Apothecary's evil twin brother, the lesser Apothecary, the guy who you pull from the shard and you're like, get excited, it's Apothecary, but no, surprise, it's not. Let's check him out. Magister. Attacks one enemy. If the hit is critical, places a 25% increased attack buff on a random ally for 1 turn. Don't love the randomness of that buff. This is a pretty bland A1. A2. Places a 30% revive on death buff and a 30% reflect damage buff on a target ally for 2 turns. Heals all other allies by 10% of the target's HP. This could be very good if you're running with like a high HP champion, like maybe if you have a miscreated monster or an HP based champion. This could be a pretty big heal, but in most cases, it's not going to be anything great. A3 attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. When booked out, this goes up to 75% chance. So it's a pretty likely you're going to land this heal reduction, but it's only a 50% chance. Overall, I do not think you're going to take Magister to in-game content. He could be possibly decent in Fire Knight, but he only hits 1 time. The heal reduction is the only thing I would really care about. His aura is only in faction crypts. So overall, I don't believe Magister is even worth leveling at all. Maybe in certain specific team comps, but as a beginner, I would not invest any resources into Magister. I would wait for some of the other supports from other factions. Finally, we have Relic Tender. For A1, attack 1 enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a 25% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. This is the lesser version of decreased attack. The greater version is 50%. So while this is a lower version, she still has a decreased attack on her ability 1, which is excellent for clan boss. Removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a 15% continuous heal buff on them for 2 turns. This is where she really shines. And then she also has a revive an ally with 30% HP and fills her turn meter by 30%, and you reduce the cooldown. The book, so it becomes a 5-turn cooldown, which is awesome. This becomes a 3-turn cooldown. So Relic Tender, definitely, I strongly believe you could take her to level 60 and get her fully ascended, fully booked out, and she could definitely prove to be valuable. She's excellent in dragons. This remove debuffs is amazing, especially when you're fighting the dragon with all the poisons and the stuns and stuff, assuming she doesn't get stunned, of course. She's definitely a very solid champion. She can even be excellent on the clan boss. This revive works well as the decreased attack. If you don't have a decreased attack champion, then she could be a great spot to fill in, especially if you don't have another strong support champion. But overall, Relic Tender, definitely an excellent champion. We can look at her ratings. Even the ratings say she's excellent on Dragon's Lair. Arenas, not so great. Dungeons in general, she's a go-to champion. Clan boss, could do well in the beginning. Definitely viable to take to level 60, without a doubt. Now, we're going to jump into attacks, which is by far the most in High Elves. So, our first attack champion is Avenger. Attack one enemy has a 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Now, this is on the ability 1, which is awesome because this means she's essentially going to be able to keep the decreased defense debuff up majority of a fight. This especially works well against the clan boss if you don't have somebody who can keep this up with the higher version of decreased defense, which is a 60%. There definitely are a few other champions in other factions, but if this is your only decreased defense champion, that's a great debuff to have. A2 attacks at random 2 times, has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. So you don't have to get this champion's crit maxed out. You can actually go with getting her to about 85% crit rate, and this would be a 100% crit chance, more or less. You get it booked down, be a 2-turn cooldown, get her speed up, she can do quite a bit of damage. Now for the A3, attacks one enemy, this skill is always a crit. So with this champion, you really want to go with the speed and crit damage side of things. Once you get to about 85% crit rate, she will always hit crits on her A2 and A3, which is where most of her damage is going to come from. And looking at her aura, not anything amazing. It's in the faction crypts. This champion overall, I likely wouldn't take her to 60 just because she doesn't have a whole lot of viability in like the clan boss in the later game. But as a champion, maybe take to like level 40, use in some dungeons possibly while you're waiting for a better damage character. Definitely viable. I wouldn't necessarily put a bunch of books into her unless you have some extra or you don't have anybody else who can do good damage. But I can see her being a character who could be very solid in some of the dungeons overall. Like I said, clan boss, not necessarily. I wouldn't sink too much resources into her. Elaine, so this is your starter. If you picked Elaine as your starter, then obviously you're going to keep her. Most likely you'll be taking her to 60. If you pulled Elaine, she's definitely still a great character. We'll check her out and see what we think. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if this attack is critical. Attacks one enemy, then all enemies, has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a crit. Places a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 3 turns if a target is killed. And then attacks all enemies 2 times. And then like all starter champions, she has the increased ally HP in all battles by 15%. Elaine is great in arenas. This increased crit rate if you kill somebody is awesome to be put on the team. It just helps with overall nuking potential. Overall, she does a lot of damage spread out in AoE. She has the most AoE of any of the starting champions. If you started with her, definitely take her to 60. She's likely going to be your strongest character for a while. If you didn't start with her and you pulled her, I don't know if I would take her to 60. She is definitely viable, but she's not too great against the clan boss. She doesn't have any really good debuffs. This ability doesn't really affect the clan boss at all because she's not going to kill it, of course. But as far as dungeons and arena, dungeons, arena, and campaign, Elaine shines. Clan boss, she's low tier. I wouldn't even use her in your clan boss team. There's so many other better champions to use against the clan boss. But overall, you pulled her. Maybe in your early game, you can definitely level up her a little bit if you need some help getting through some of those lower level dungeons. But I would definitely try to replace her with somebody else who's better for the specific dungeons as soon as possible. Okay, this chick, I don't know how to say her name, but let's read her abilities. Attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 20%. Attacks 2 times at random, has a 50% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target skills by 1 turn at random. So this champion's not terrible. She has a pretty low chance of placing this when booked out. It goes to 45%. And this is a lower version of the heal reduction. There is a 100% heal reduction debuff as well. Kind of underwhelming. This isn't great. It is a turn meter reduction, which is better than nothing. It'll be on a 3-turn cooldown once you can get it booked. If you get her speed up high enough and pair with some other turn meter reduction characters, she can be reducing the turn meter pretty well. And this ability, increasing the cooldown of target skill, possibly be good in arenas. Overall, I definitely don't think she's worth taking to level 60. You can possibly use her in some of the lower level dungeons, such as a Spirit Keep for the heal reduction. But overall, I think she's going to be a character you replace very quickly. She just has a few abilities that are decent. She does have an aura, which is fairly solid, especially if you need accuracy on your champions. So this gives her somewhat of a viability on the clan boss. So say you have very low accuracy, you could bring her in to help you apply the debuffs to the clan boss, but her skill set's not really going to help you on the clan boss whatsoever. But I'll definitely try to keep her out if possible. Same thing with dungeons. If you need somebody to be applying the poisons to dragon and you don't have enough accuracy to do so yourself, you can bring her as a lead and have some help applying the poisons. Now, next, Arace. So Arace is farmable from the campaign. There's a few of these who are. Arace is actually a pretty solid champion. She attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed, removes one random debuff from all allies, has a 60% chance of placing a 30% increased speed on all allies for 2 turns. So if you don't have a speed champion like Apothecary, Diabolist, which is a different faction, if you don't have Apothecary or anybody to boost your speed, she's an excellent champion to have. This 30% speed can be used on the clan boss, so you're able to actually bring her onto the clan boss. She also has counterattacks the attacker when an ally is attacked on her passive, which also makes her viable on the clan boss, especially if you was to take her to level 60 and you got her tier 6 mastery. She could do that much better. Her aura increases allies' speed in dungeons by 16%. This is solid. There's definitely better speed auras, but as a dungeon champion, she's definitely viable. This especially shines if you get her attack up high enough to actually kill people or finish them off more often than not. She'll be getting extra turns left and right, and then increasing speed of your team. So while I wouldn't take her to level 60, there's likely better characters you can find. She's definitely a champion who you could take to, say, level 50, use her in your arena, use her in your clan boss team, use her in dungeons especially is where she really shines in my opinion. So you probably see her dungeons pretty high. Clan boss is meh, nothing crazy there. Fire Knights is low, Spider Dens is low like we expect. Overall, she's a solid champion, especially since you can get her from the campaign. If you don't have anybody with a speed boost, I would definitely try to get her from the campaign. Now, let's move on to Pincer, the next attack champion. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 15% chance of placing a 15% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Attacks one enemy has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Steals 20% of the target's turn meter if the stun debuff is not placed. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. And her aura increases ally attack in dungeons by 23%. So nothing crazy in her set here. She has a lesser version of the decreased defense, similar to what we shown earlier with, I believe, Avenger. So she's a little worse than Avenger. Avenger at least has this on her A1, so she's able to use it more often. Decreased speed could potentially come in handy. Could be used in some dungeons, but overall, I think some of the other attack champions in here could be used in replacing of her. I definitely wouldn't put too much resources into her. Wouldn't book her out. Wouldn't take her past level 40. So maybe level her up once if you really need somebody for these abilities. Her A2 is one that kind of stands out to me. I kind of do like it. So basically, she either places a stun or she steals 20% of the target's turn meter. So if she doesn't land the stun, she steals the turn meter. I do like the A2. It's on a 4-turn cooldown, and this could potentially be useful in dungeons, but you typically you want to go with defense auras or speed auras over attack. But Pincer, not a character I would invest much into. Definitely I wouldn't take her to level 60. Iria. Now this is a rare champion that I really like. She's not farmable from the campaign, only openable from shards. Let's read her abilities. Attacks one enemy, has a 25% extra chance of inflicting a critical hit. Awesome. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 35% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. Now this is the higher version of poison. There is also a 2.5% poison. So she's applying the 5% version, and she has the potential to apply 3 of these poison debuffs. So getting 3 poison debuffs on the clan boss, for example, would be amazing. When you book her out, it takes this to 50% chance. So you have a 50% chance on each hit to apply poison. So this is definitely an amazing ability for clan boss and dragons, for example. Now her A3 is an ability that I really like, and I've used this character for a while actually. Attacks one enemy with 2 random allies. Allies joining an attack use their default skills. So when you book this down, it goes from a 6-turn cooldown to a 4-turn cooldown. And if you're using this with characters such as Kale or other characters who apply debuffs on their default abilities, then she can really start to shine, especially on clan boss. So when she uses this on those characters, they're able to apply more poisons, apply more debuffs, apply that decreased attack from Relic Tinder if you're using them on the same team. So Iria, definitely a character who I would consider taking to level 60. I definitely wouldn't take her as one of your first characters. She's more as it's like a support type role. Very solid in the clan boss. You don't have to get her crit up super high, especially if you're just worried about this landing a crit. 75% chance crit would be plenty. Her aura increases ally crit rate in the arena by 16%. Also, a great arena champion. You can bring the aura for a little extra crit rate. Definitely do some more damage with this. Nice little burst. Overall, here he is, a very solid champion in the High Elves faction. But looking at her stuff, clan boss is where she's highest rating, like I was saying. And then dragons, she should be doing pretty well on that as well. 4.6, definitely not bad. These poisons hit massively on the dragon. I believe that is all the attack characters. Yes, that's all. So let's check out this final defense character. So attacks one enemy, has a 25% chance of placing a 15% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Attacks one enemy, has a 45% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn. Places a 15% weaken debuff for 2 turns if the skill does not place sleep. And then decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 15%. So this is another interesting ability. It places the sleep debuff, places the weaken debuff if the sleep debuff is not placed. Now, granted, this is the lesser version of weaken, so it's not great, but you have an almost guaranteed chance to get a debuff up. So that's all. So overall, this character is not anything amazing in my opinion. I definitely wouldn't take her to level 60. I would possibly take her to like level 40 if you need her in something specific and you pulled her real early, but I don't think her skill set brings enough to make her really worth it. This ability right here makes her possibly viable in arena, especially if you want to go first, get her speed up real high, use this ability, and you should be going first all the time in arena. There's definitely better champions than her who have a similar skill set as her. Plus, she only has 29 reviews, so it doesn't seem like she's a very common champion to even get. Very low ratings overall, so don't invest too much resources into her. Looking at the high elf rares though, I'm going to point out my top rares that I believe you should definitely invest stuff into, which is Apothecary as a support, Relic Tinder as a support, Iria as the attack, possibly Arace and Elaine. Those are my favorite rares within the high elf category. We mentioned a few different rares who could potentially be taken to a little bit later game content, but ones I definitely would not invest anything into whatsoever is Magister, Interceptor, and I believe Educator, what her name is. Wouldn't invest stuff into those 3. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. I'm going to make these on each of the factions, going over the rares. If you have any ideas or any tweaks you'd like to see me make to these kind of videos, or any suggestions, please leave those in the comment section below, and I will check those out. If you want to tune into my Twitch channel, it is Twitch TV/Tyraku. We go live at 11 p.m. at night, and we stream till about 3 a.m. EST. Join the Discord channel as well. I'll also leave that in the comment section below. I'm going to put tags to the champions, timestamps in this video, which if you're to this point in the video, you've already seen it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you understand who you should and should not invest your resources into, especially as a new player. It's very important to understand that. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.